Friends, today I'm going to talk about how our perception influences our assessment of benefit risk. So we all think in terms of data and analysis. And yes, risk has a lot to do with data analysis. But in the last couple of years, my thinking has changed significantly because I have become aware of a second dimension to risk, and that's feeling. How we all feel about risk also influences our perception and judgment. Hello everyone, and welcome again to our weekly live discussion. Thank you for joining, and I see some of you have already introduced yourselves. Ricardo, thank you for joining again. I know you have attended our sessions in the past, and I'm so happy to see you again. Shanti, I welcome you to this discussion. Greg, welcome back, and I'm so excited to see all of you guys again. It's great to be with you again, and I look forward to our live discussions every week. I hope you do too. So I'm very happy to welcome. Those of you who are joining for the first time, my name is Naveen Agarwal, and I have been working in the medical device industry for many years and now focusing on risk management for the last 5 years. Bijan, thank you for joining. I appreciate so much you joining. It means a lot to me, and particularly today's discussion is going to be extremely exciting. And folks, if you're joining for the first time, we do this every Tuesday, and the whole idea is to engage with each other, have a conversation. This is not a webinar. This is not a lecture, and my intention is not to go into a whole lot of technical details of risk management. I know it is hard and it's on top of everyone's mind. But my main purpose of these conversations with you is to have a dialogue. So at any time, please feel free to share your comments or thoughts in the chat. The way this works is, unfortunately, we cannot see each other face to face, but this has been working very well for the last several weeks. Please make sure you share your comments in the chat, but keeping in mind that this is a public forum. Let's be respectful to each other, especially if we disagree with any of the comments shared with us. We are not here to argue or debate. We can just express our opinions in a very professional way. And finally, nothing we talk about these sessions should be taken as regulatory advice. This is not the purpose. The purpose is to share knowledge. I also see Josie from Bangalore, India. Wow, you are in a very different time zone, and I'm sure it is very late for you. So I totally appreciate you joining, taking the time from your evening to attend this conversation with us. So friends, today I'm going to talk about how our perception influences our assessment of benefit risk. Now, I got interested in this topic a couple of years ago when I came across some very fascinating research about the feeling of risk. Now, I'm an engineer by training, and I know a lot of you have very advanced technical qualifications and degrees and analytical skills. So we all think in terms of data and analysis. And yes, risk has a lot to do with data analysis. But in the last couple of years, my thinking has changed significantly because I have become aware of a second dimension to risk, and that's feeling. How we all feel about risk also influences our perception and judgment. So we're going to talk about that, and actually I'm going to be doing a quick experiment with all of you, and I hope you will participate. It'll be a very quick experiment, won't take more than a few minutes or so. But I'm going to actually ask you to look at an image, a photograph I will show you very quickly. And within 15 seconds, very quickly, rate if you consider that to be a risky scenario or not a risky scenario. Now, I do not want us to become too analytical about this and overanalyze or overthink. And in fact, what I would recommend is that after looking at the photograph for maybe a brief moment, close your eyes and pay attention to how it's making you feel. And based on that, give your rating in the chat. So I will show a photograph for about 15 seconds. And during that time in the chat, please give your rating. So every photograph will be numbered. And what I would like you to do is to give your rating after that number. So if I show you the first photograph, your rating should be 1 dash, either it's risky if you feel that way, or 1 dash not risky if you feel that way, right? So it's going to be very, very simple, very quick, and I would love for you to engage and participate. I know we have several folks on the discussion today. So let's get going with that. And after that, I will discuss a few more things about it. Okay, Sanjay, you're joining from Chicago. Welcome for joining, Sanjay. We're going to be doing a quick experiment. So I'm going to go right into that with you. Let's play risky or not. And again, what we're going to do is look at a photograph for a brief moment. And within that brief moment, I would like you to rate that as either risky or not risky based on how it makes you feel, your perception. Okay, thank you for rating. This is number 1, and we have about 1 second left. Great. So now I would like you to wrap up this rating very quickly. So I'm going to go to the next one. Next one is coming right now. Savita, quickly to answer a question, no, we are not doing a severity scale. We don't want to overthink this. We want to look at the image and share our feeling, how it makes us feel. So a lot of you are saying it's risky. Again, 15 seconds are over. I'm going to go to the next one. So again, please give me the number of the photograph and risky. All right, next one. 15 seconds. This is number 3. Okay, so if you could put the number and then either risky or not risky, I would love to see that. Okay, number 3. Okay, 15 seconds are over. Again, please wrap up your rating quickly, and I'm gonna go to the next one. Number 4. Excellent. Thank you for rating. This is good. So for number 4, please give in your rating. Great. Okay, now I'm gonna go to number 5. Here is number 5, and the 15-second timer is over. And I have one last photograph remaining. So if you wrap up your rating for number 5 quickly, I will go to number 6. And here is 15 seconds for number 6. Okay, so that was number 6, and that's it. Excellent work, guys. I know this was an experiment, and I really appreciate all of you participating so actively. Now, we didn't keep track of who rated what, but we saw a lot of ratings for risky, a lot of ratings for maybe risky, somewhat risky, not risky. And it is not a surprise, because all of us are looking at the same situation, same scenario from our own unique perspective. Okay, so I want to share with you actually the results of this experiment I did in a live talk in front of 50 people a couple of years ago. The same experiment, and I want to share that with you. So here were the results, and these was 50 people. The red bar indicates responses risky, and the blue bars were responses as not risky. And there were some people who were not able to answer, which is fine, because when we do this so quickly, sometimes we do not get everybody to answer within the right time frame. So You can see the first one, where driving with one eye on the cell phone, 72% said it was risky, and many of you expressed the same feeling. Riding a motorcycle, about 60%, 66% said risky, 22% not risky. And again, we have a fair amount of similarity in distribution in the responses from today. Vaping, certainly, many people find that risky. I didn't show you the picture of the stock market, which is kind of hard to see on my screen. It is right here. Stock market, in that survey or experiment, 54% said it was risky, 34% not risky. Roller coaster, many people, 76% said not risky. Some people still said it was risky, which is kind of understandable, because not many people want to go on the roller coaster, especially if they are aware of accidents happening and being reported in the news media. Now, this final one was interesting. For a dark alley, about 50-50 split roughly, saying that risky or not risky. So the point here is that we look at the same scenario from a different perspective. Each one of us looks at it differently. This is how perception influences our decisions. So what I want to share with you is some research in this area, which I became familiar a couple of years ago. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but I want to explain to you as simply as I can what the concept is. But we should understand that the benefit-risk judgment is often distorted by perception. And some of you may have already seen that at play, and I would love for you to continue sharing in the chat if you have seen this play out in your scenarios or work environment that you work with. So let's look at a situation where we can show benefit and risk on a 2x2 grid. Benefits going from low to high and risk also going from low to high. And let's say we have a situation where the benefit risk is right in the center, what I would call the true benefit risk, based on the most objective evaluation that you can imagine. So this is a scenario where the benefit risk is right in the middle of this grid. Now let's see how perception distorts this benefit risk judgment. There are many people who are influenced by what we call negative affect. Now, affect is just jargon, but this basically refers to a feeling of good or bad with or without consciousness. It happens to all of us at all times. And when I did that quick experiment with you, you were rating the photograph based on the affect, how it made you feel, because I also didn't give you enough time to overthink and overanalyze this. This is how affect works. It works in the moment, instantaneously, without us being even conscious. So let's say someone is affected by negative affect. If the information presented to them focuses on risk being too high in this scenario, it will lead to the inference on their part that the benefit is low. Now, this has been proven by research, because they would focus on the risk part of it in the information provided to them, and they will infer that the benefit is low. Now let's play out this scenario. We have just come out of COVID-19, right? And think about the conversations and controversy we had over COVID-19 vaccine, right? There were many people who felt that the vaccine development was rushed, it was too quick, we didn't have enough long-term information about adverse events. And yes, many deaths were being reported even among those who were vaccinated. So if they focused on that part of the information, their inference would be the benefit of getting the COVID-19 vaccine is not very high. We saw that play out very well in media everywhere. Let's look at the other side of the story. There are a lot of people who might be under the influence of positive affect, where if the information makes them believe that the benefit is high, their inference would be that the risk is low. And this comes from this research, Feeling of Risk by Paul Slovic, which I highly recommend to all of you. Get that book if you are interested. Fascinating, fascinating. So let's go back to our COVID-19 vaccine case. We also heard that vaccine was more than 90% effective. If we paid attention to that fact, 90% effectiveness doesn't mean it's 90% for everybody. in general, it was more than 90% effective. Adverse events were not very serious. We heard that if we wanted to focus on that piece of information. And yes, there were deaths, but we would have more deaths if there was no vaccine. So if we are focusing on that piece of the information, we would infer that the benefit of getting that COVID-19 vaccine far outweighs the risk. Now, this is how affect works. And when I understood this by reading the research, I was able to actually understand what was going on around us. During these last 3 years, we have seen tremendous polarization in our society. We seem to be on opposite end of the spectrum about everything. We cannot find a middle ground. And I was able to make sense of that. So I wanted to share this with you as how the effect might be distorting our judgment in real world from the benefit risk point of view. Very briefly, I will share with you 2 more slides to help us understand the reason why we feel this way, where does perception come from. And there is some work around the group grid framework of culture theory. And again, there's a reference here. I'll share with you very, very briefly. So like any other model, it is not perfect, but it helps us explain and understand behaviors. So on one end, you have a cultural norm or a cultural belief or of extreme individualism. Now, let's talk about this for a moment. People who believe in this cultural norm are not satisfied with the status quo. They are driven to achieve more success. They are driven to go beyond this boundary without any restriction. They emphasize competition and freedom, and they are threatened by regulation or perception of excessive regulation. On the other end, you have a lot of folks who believe in the cultural norm of hierarchy. They are driven by the same model. They also want to challenge the status quo, but they want guardrails so that they don't want to get off the cliff, just fall off the cliff if they come out of this status quo. So they are driven to seek structure, and they emphasize the rule of law and policy, and they are threatened by disorder, chaos. Now, the other 2 models are not as common, but they are still there. Egalitarianism, where they already believe that they are at the edge of the cliff. So they have to be very cohesive in their group. Any small change from the external world can throw them off balance. So they are driven by unity in that group, emphasis on equality and solidarity, and the threat is from the external world. Then you have fatalism, where status quo. Nothing changes. Things are going to be what they're going to be. Let's just accept. Power is not relevant, and they are threatened by choice. So this theoretical framework, how does it help us understand risk perception? I was fascinated by this. So again, let's go back to the group grid framework. Those who are in the individualism cultural norm, they are perceiving high risk from regulation. Things like government programs, because it inhibits, in their mind, it inhibits their ability to experiment, to go beyond where the status quo will allow them to go. So they are saying, I want to be free to compete, I want to be free to do whatever I want, and why should anyone else get any special treatment? That's their view. We are not talking about good or bad, right or wrong. We are not going to pass judgment. We're going to understand where that view is coming from. And we can understand in many of our, in fact, in the society within the US, we have a lot of people driven by individual freedom, and we want to make progress. But we also have a lot of folks who believe in order and not chaos. So the high risk could be infectious disease, COVID-19 being the classic example, because it can cause a lot of chaos and disorder, and it did. Alcohol, drug use, anything that creates disorder in the society can be perceived as high risk. Now, we may be on the extreme ends, and our perception may be distorted a lot more than the perception of those who are in the center, right? So we have a lot of this dynamic going on. In this area, high risk will be global warming, a universal issue, which, if happens, will destroy the group. Discrimination within the group will destroy group equality. So these are the kind of risks they would be worried about. And on fatalism side, vaccines, anything unnatural would be perceived as high risk. Automation, machinery, equipment, anything like that which is not natural could be perceived as high risk. Now, having said this, it doesn't have anything to do with a particular country or a particular demographic or a particular segment of our population. My understanding is that these are not mutually exclusive. Same person may feel about certain issues from an individualism perspective or from a hierarchy perspective. Same person at different times, different issues can behave that way. So this becomes even more complex in our risk management process, in our benefit risk evaluation. At the end of the day, benefit risk is about making a choice, right? We don't know everything that is there to know. We have to make a choice. In many cases, we make a choice in our daily lives, for example, by doing these assessments almost intuitively, almost without even thinking about them. ISO 14971 recognizes the influence of perception. In the introduction section, they've talked about it. Risk management is a complex subject because each stakeholder can place a different value on the acceptability of risks in relation to the anticipated benefits. Particularly for medical devices, this situation becomes even more complex because there are many stakeholders, including medical practitioners, the organization providing healthcare, government, industry, patients, and members of the public. Many stakeholders. Different countries, different cultural backgrounds, and they may all have their unique perceptions about benefit risk. So each stakeholder's perception can vary depending upon their cultural background, the socio-economic and educational background of the society concerned, and the actual and perceived state of health of the patient. ISO 14971 talks about that in the introduction section. That is why risk management becomes quite complex. And we have to learn to live with a little bit of uncertainty, a little bit of ambiguity, with the intent to do the best we can over time. We are not going to strive for perfection. We are not going to say we're going to look for zero risk when nothing like that will exist like that. We're going to strive for continual improvement and improving our understanding. And this is why I wanted to share with you that there is a whole body of science and research behind how people feel about risk, that as practitioners of risk management, we should become aware of it. So I want to leave with you some best practices that I think could be useful as we practice risk management. And I would love to continue to hear from you in the chat if this makes sense, if you have experienced something like this that you would want to share. I think we should aim to achieve a diversity of viewpoints based not only on professional expertise, but also based on cultural experiences. I think we do a pretty good job of getting people from different functions, having different expertise, but we should also aim to achieve diversity in viewpoints from a cultural perspective. Number one rule should be get everyone grounded on the intended use of the medical device. This is the baseline. If as a group, as a team, we are not aligned, we don't have the same understanding of the intended use, I think our task will be much more difficult. Number three is, if we want to be experts in risk management practice within our organizations, we should develop strong facilitation skills. To me, this is more important than your technical skills. Pay special attention to extreme opinions and do not ignore them as outliers. The mistake we can make in risk management is to say if someone is operating under negative affect, they are being too conservative. Or if someone is operating under positive affect, they are not thinking about risk in a responsible way. We should not do that. We should hear everyone out and strive to achieve consensus. Very important. Generally, it's my experience, benefit risk analysis of individual risks is more challenging. Some of the individual risks may arise from design choices made to support special or advanced functionality purely for competitive reasons. In those situations, staying true to your intended use statement will be very helpful. Finally, write your risk management report in a way that provides an insight into your decision-making process. because at the end of the day, risk management report should provide a summary of your decision making, and it should show to anybody that you have considered all these possibilities and all these scenarios. So I know we went into a lot of stuff very quickly, but this is, to me, very important for us to understand if you want to practice risk management in an effective way in our organizations. Personally, to me, this was eye-opening when I learned about this a couple of years back, and I continue to think about this, continue to learn about this. And throughout the COVID period, I learned even more as I observed what was happening in our society in response to all these fantastic developments happening at amazing speed. We made a lot of progress coming out with new vaccines, making sure we were doing all we can through testing, through vaccines, through good practices to control this very difficult scenario. But we saw a lot of conflict. We saw a lot of controversy. So it helped me understand that and helped me apply some of these principles to figure out what was going on without passing judgment on it, which is the message I want to communicate to you. So I hope this makes sense. Please share your thoughts and comments. Continue to talk about this on LinkedIn. I know we are almost out of time, but let me know how you feel about this. Let me know if this type of information is useful to you. And reach out to me if there are topics that you would be interested in talking about. Because at the end of the day, that's the whole point of these conversations. And I want to share with you an exciting piece of news also, that I just finished 5 years of my risk management consulting practice. And I'm so excited to look forward to the next 5 years, focusing on risk management as the area that I want to work in. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about this is our conversations like this, because I'm learning so much from you as I share this knowledge and help to build a community of practitioners. Bijan, you are sharing a comment here. Inviting cultural diversity in benefit risk analysis is a good idea, but in practice it may be difficult. How would we know what type of thinker people are? So Bijan, yes, it would be difficult, but if we work in a diverse multicultural organization which supports diversity of viewpoints, I think we have an advantage already. And if we know our colleagues in a more personal way, just being on a professional terms, if we know who they are, we can make a good assessment about what their perceptions might be and continue to test our thinking. Let's not make any assumptions. But as a practitioner of risk management, or if you are the risk manager or the project manager, I think you should keep that in mind to bring people from outside your team. If you happen to work in a diverse organization, get people to join. Ask them to become independent observers in your risk management reviews. They don't have to be there all the time. Seek out mentorship, seek out coaching from people who may think broadly than you do, and learn how to get those people involved. Not easy, but if we are aware of it, I think we can figure out a way. So I hope we will think about this and consider it as we set up our teams and our reviews and constantly challenge all the assumptions being made. So thank you for pointing that out, Bijan. I think we should really consider this opportunity because I believe in big organizations we have a pretty diverse set of people. Okay, folks, so we are coming to the end of our conversation today. Usually we hang around for about 30 minutes and I want to continue the conversation with you. So let's keep talking on LinkedIn. I will post a recording. Let's continue the conversation. And before we go, I want to share with you some additional free resources that if you're not aware of it, you can take advantage of those. And that can also help us drive this conversation. So you can go to my website, www.achieveexcel.com/free stuff. I have a knowledge sharing forum, and if you are not part of that, I really invite you to become a part of this. There are more than 200 people. It's a closed group, and we have a good conversation going on there. So I invite you. There's a hazard analysis template you can use. And if you would like, you can set up a 30-minute one-on-one conversation with me. No strings attached. We can get to know each other, have a conversation, figure out a way to collaborate with each other. So with that, I invite you to stay engaged with me. Share at any time what's on your mind. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Join the knowledge sharing forum. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining again. And let's meet next week. Have a good week, everybody.